What's good, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to start a new pseudo series where I break down every single position group for the Miami Dolphins. Because I already did a video on Tua Tagovailoa, which you can see above me and it will be on the card on the screen right now, I am actually going to skip quarterback and move right on to running back to start this series. I might come back to it later, but for now I want to break down the tailback position for your Miami Dolphins heading into the 2022-23 season. With that being said, let's do a deep dive into this Miami Dolphins running back room and see if there's a franchise running back on the roster. So with that, let's begin with who's a part of this position group. We have Myles, who's been the starter for the better part of 2 seasons thus far and has performed adequately, which might be the best way to put it, who came from Washington University just like his teammate Salvon Ahmed, where they share the backfield at their alma mater, and they have done the same thing here since Ahmed was added to the team. Ahmed had a good season, relatively, in 2020, but struggled to follow that up in 2021 as he attempted to become the second player in the depth chart. The only other running back to come back from the Dolphins team after Mike McDaniel was hired was Gerrid Doaks, a 7th round pick made by general manager Chris Grier in that 2021 NFL draft.
With the 244th pick in the 2021 NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins select Gerrid Doaks, running back.
He's been stapled to the practice squad and has yet to play a snap in the regular season. I doubt he makes the 53-man roster, and there's a chance he doesn't make the practice squad with Mike McDaniel at the helm. Another player who wasn't a high draft pick, or a draft pick at all in this case, is zaquandre. White was signed as an undrafted free agent just after this past year's draft from South Carolina. Later in the offseason free agency cycle, Miami picked up a former division rival Patriot in Sony Michel after he wasn't re-signed by the Super Bowl winning Rams.
The Dolphins did sign running back Sony Michel, according to reports, on Monday, May 9th.
To be back home, to be with a great team, a team that I've watched from afar, a team that I've competed against, knowing guys on the team and knowing what they're about, knowing how hard this team works and seeing how hard this team works. I'm excited.
On the other hand, on the first day of free agency, Chase Edmonds became a Miami Dolphin after putting up his best year as a pro in Arizona. Which, by the way, is very noteworthy because he's the one running back who they gave a multi-year deal to, as he had his second year on his contract. Even though he can be cut pretty easily next year if things don't work out, I think it's definitely something of note that he's the only running back who they gave a second year to.
The Miami Dolphins and running back Chase Edmonds reached an agreement on a 2-year deal worth $12.6 million that includes $6.1 million guaranteed.
Good. Obviously, I got to get used to this heat, but just to be out here with the team, be out here with the guys grinding hard, we're really trying to build something special here. And, Coach McDaniel, he just always talks about when we want to build something special, it's going to be a lot of hard work. So just having guys bought into the system, having guys bought into the work, taking care of each other, and I'm excited to be out here with the guys now.
Raheem Mostert followed Mike McDaniel to the team, which wasn't a surprise to anyone. So it's June now, and the room seems full. This is the group that Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier will have to pick from to add to the final 53-man roster heading into next season. Before we go in depth with any details, I think it's important that we identify who's actually going to be a part of this 53-man roster at the running back position, so we do a deep dive on those players, not the guys who probably won't make it. Free agent signings Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, and Sony Michel are as close to locks as they can be without being 100%. Then if the Dolphins decide to carry 4 running backs, which usually is the case, but could change with the new head coach, I believe it will be Myles, Gaskin, Salvon, Ahmed, and zaquandre fighting for that 4th spot. I can't see any way Gerrid Doaks makes the active roster based on everything that we've seen so far. So, who will get the 4th spot? In my opinion, it will actually be between zaquandre and Salvon Ahmed, where whoever performs better before the season, whether it's in training camp or in the preseason, will make the active roster, with the other going to the practice squad as they are both eligible. I know, you're all wondering, Myles Gaskin will make the team? That's a yes and a no to that question. Out of all 3 guys, I feel like Gaskin is the odd man out. He has the most trade value, if any at all, so he can be moved to acquire an asset. He's also the only one without a tie that I can find to Mike McDaniel. So to me, there's a chance he isn't on the team come September. That's a lukewarm take, but I think it's possible. Salvon Ahmed was actually on the 49ers for a bit as an undrafted free agent while McDaniel was there, but was waived before the season began. And Mike McDaniel must have liked zaquandre enough to sign him as an undrafted free agent and said that he was the most impressive undrafted free agent rookie the Dolphins signed in a press conference. That's a class that includes the likes of Kellen Deach and Verone McKinley, who are 2 guys who a lot of people believe have a solid chance at making the active 53-man roster.
I've been very impressed with, I call him Dr. White. But there's plenty of guys.
Between the 2, I think Ahmed ultimately edges out White, just due to experience and the prospect of Ahmed performing like he did in 2020, where he averaged over 4.2 yards per attempt and had a 100-yard performance against the Patriots in Week 15. He did a great job rushing between the tackles and outside the tackles, and has improved as a pass catcher both years so far. He gets the 4th spot for me as he's more versatile than White, and while White might be a better pure runner, He needs to improve as a pass catcher and a pass blocker to be an NFL running back. This battle for the 4th spot is obviously a tough one to figure out, but that's how I see it going. Maybe Myles Gaskin is already a lock in Mike McDaniel's eyes. Maybe zaquandre White impresses enough to make the team. At this point, we don't know. Now it's time to take a look at the committee that should carry the load for the Miami Dolphins rushing attack heading into next season. Raheem Mostert, who signed for a year at around $3 million, is a guy who could easily be the lead back for this team, if he could stay healthy, but I just can't see that happening. He has everything you could want in a running back from Mike McDaniel-led team if it wasn't for health. He's familiar with the outside zone scheme that McDaniel likes to run and thrives in that system.
You know, with the run scheme, it's wide zone, a typical run scheme, but we do a lot of inside zone. So there's several different ways, you know, we could attack the defense. And Mike's gonna, like I said, Mike, he's been a run game coordinator for years with the Niners, and you know, I know that he's gonna come up with a great game plan per defense. When it comes to those, you know, wide zone reads and stuff like that, you really have to just make your mark as putting your foot in the ground and get upfield. And I do it exceptional well at that, especially understanding the blocking scheme, because, you know, you can't just be a running back in the league. You know, with this offense, you definitely have to understand the blocking scheme and what the defensive front is and how the linebackers overplay the run, and how can you counterbalance that. And yeah, it just, a lot goes into it.
He has the ability to catch the ball on screens, toss his underneath routes, but he's definitely more of a rusher than a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's never averaged under 5 yards per attempt since entering the league, and is probably the fastest running back in the NFL, having 2 of the fastest clock speeds for any player in the NFL in 2020 per next gen stats. He's elite with his burst and acceleration, and is wildly explosive once the ball is in his hands, and is always a threat to score when he can get free in space. In 2019, where he played 15 games, he had 772 yards, good for 5.6 yards per attempt, which led all running backs by a large margin. Derrick Henry was second best in yards per attempt at 5.1. He had 14 receptions for 180 yards, but out of his 22 targets, 3 of them were drops. Even against stacked fronts, which is 8 or more players in the box, he averaged 5.4 yards per attempt. The issue here is, I had to go all the way back to 2019 for any resemblance of a full season worth of statistics. He's a great running back, but he cannot be the number 1 back due to his durability concerns. He can absolutely be a part of a committee and thrive in such a role like he did in 2019 with a 32.2% opportunity share. But after suffering his 7th lower body injury this past year, when he trimmed his meniscus and his knee, which led him to missing the rest of the season.
Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, somewhat surprising news if you're a San Francisco 49er fan. Raheem Mostert's season is officially over. This after it was announced that he would miss up to 8 weeks with chipped cartilage in his knee.
He just shouldn't be looked at as more than a premium number 2 type player who can turn on the Jets and impact a game when receiving touches, as long as he stays healthy. Sony Michel is somehow a player who I believe has been overlooked by the rest of the league. He signed a 1-year deal worth just under $2 million after having a quality season with the Rams, and it's not like he's old or anything at just 27 years old, and just had a year where he was top 20 in rushing yards at 845, with just a 54% opportunity share. He averaged 4.1 yards per attempt, which is okay, but it should be noted his offensive line run block rating was only 64.2, which was good for bottom 5 in the entire league. He's familiar with the wide zone blocking system that Mike McDaniel likes to run after running in Sean McVay's wide zone scheme. He's about the same level of pass catcher as Raheem Mostert, putting up 128 receiving yards last year with 3 drops. He did struggle when having to go against 7 or more players in the box defending him, but the year previous with the Patriots he averaged over 7 yards per carry against a base 7-man front and 5 yards per carry against a stacked 8-man front, with an even worse offensive line. In my opinion, he's actually a player who won't cause commotion if he doesn't get his desired amount of touches, as he used to be in a committee after spending time with the Patriots and the Rams, and can provide value on the field as a player who can run in between and outside the tackles, and based on his 2020 campaign, could provide value as a power adjacent type back, which is something the Dolphins don't really have right now outside of himself. Chase Edmonds isn't that, but he provides a tremendous amount of value for this team. I think he's already being underappreciated, but he will continue to be underrated as the season continues. I could see him becoming the lead back, although it will still remain a committee nonetheless. He's a great runner of the ball, is a great pass catcher, and is easily the best pass blocking running back on the roster. He's more familiar with an inside zone type running back scheme after playing under Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense, which means it will be a little bit more of a learning curve for him in this outside zone scheme that we run, but that shouldn't cause him any troubles. He was already trying to improve at that early in the offseason and has had OTAs and will have the entire rest of the training camp and preseason to become familiar and comfortable with the scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I played against it, for the last 4 years. It's something special, just with how they kind of disguise everything and kind of window dress and make everything look like the same. Really confuses the defense, and it holds the defense to really be disciplined and just have gap integrity. And I think that's something that I'm pretty good at, specializing with my zone scheme. And I'm excited to just get it under the zone and kind of, work my feet, work the rhythm. It's a different scheme than what I'm used to. I was predominantly inside zone, so just working my feet, getting used to the outside zone track, getting used to the outside zone feel, how certain lanes feel, but just working to build to something special, man. I mean, you assess it by just your tracks. You assess it by, like, obviously the lanes that are there. We're still playing football, you know, but I just feel like from my personal standpoint, as a running back, you know, it's not real until you get the pads on. You don't really get to feel the lanes. You don't really get to feel kind of the scheme, the tempo, really, especially the tempo changes so much from pads to no pads.
Outside of that, I think sky's the limit for the former Arizona Cardinals running back. He averaged 5.1 yards per attempt last year, which was good for 4th in the league out of all tailbacks who started 10 or more games. He's used to being a committee after sharing the backfield with former teammate James Conner last year, having around 50% of the share. He only put up 592 rushing yards, but that wasn't due to inefficiency. It was more influenced by the scheme and only getting 116 carries on the year. He also put up 300 receiving yards on 43 receptions and only had 2 drops. He does have a small build, but he's pretty good against the 7-man base front, averaging 4.7 yards per carry, and excelled against light 6-man or less fronts, averaging 5.7 yards per carry. Pass blocking is where he truly excels above the rest on this team, allowing no sacks on 132 pass blocking snaps over the last 3 years. He can play on any down, and even though his yards per carry against a loaded front isn't something to brag about, he did convert on 73% of attempts when trying to gain 3 or fewer yards. So he can do it when he needs to. But with Sony Michel behind him, he shouldn't have to anyway. Chase Edmonds is a player who's easily the most versatile running back the Dolphins have, and in an offense with pitches, tosses, outside runs, screen passes, and a lot of routes for the running backs to go underneath, this is something where Edmonds can excel in every part of that system. This is why I think he's the most underappreciated running back so far, and being a little bit overlooked to become the leader of this rushing attack. He's just that versatile running the ball, receiving the ball, and protecting the quarterback. I see him and Michel splitting the carries, and then most are coming in when we need a boost, or if one of them goes down. These 3 backs should shoulder most of the load for our rushing attack, but for now, I think Chase Edmonds is the most likely to take over that primary spot. So with that all in mind, I actually don't think we have a franchise running back on the roster. With that being said, I do think Chase Edmonds can be an elite complementary back, and who knows, with a little bit of development with Mike McDaniel, maybe he is the future at that running back position. But for now, what do you think? Does Myles Gaskin get traded? Does Edmonds become the lead back? Does anyone on the roster prove to be a franchise running back? Please let me know in the comments down below. And with that, thanks for watching. See you next time.